when you're making these bets, you can always say less or more.
A foul called on sports betting.
I don't think it's the state's choice to decide whether you can gamble, though.
Attorney General Rob Bonta throws a flag on online fantasy sports.
It's not an opinion, it's not a policy, it's not a discretionary act. It is a objective, straightforward description of what existing law is.
I think that should be a hands-off process by the hands of the Attorney General.
On California Politics 360, we dive into the legal and political battle of daily fantasy sports.
You can make money and it makes the game more interesting.
We hear from voices on both sides of the issue.
They're violating state law as well as tribal.
It's not helpful for a Democratic Party that's trying to win back young men.
A look at the future of sports betting overall in California.
We do believe there is a path forward for sports betting, but that path begins and ends with tribes.
Thanks for joining us for California Politics 360. I'm Ashley Zavala. It's one of the best times of the year for sports fans. There's playoff baseball, football is in full swing, hockey just got underway, and the basketball season is starting in a few days. While fans root for their team, it's common for them to see ads for fantasy sports and betting.
The point total might seem jarring to a lot of people, being set at 62.5. I would still play the over in this one.
Fantasy sports allows people to create a fantasy team of professional athletes, and they can win money on how well that team performs. California is one of 11 states that bans sports gambling. Voters have kept it that way. They rejected an effort to legalize it in 2022. Some say fantasy sports has always been a legal gray area. Online fantasy sports platforms have been operating in California, though, for more than a decade and generate billions of dollars. In July, Attorney General Rob Bonta issued a legal opinion indicating all daily fantasy sports platforms are illegal in the state. The opinion was expected to set up court action and legislative battles, but nothing has happened in the 3 months since. Today, we're going to walk through the legal and political battle surrounding daily fantasy sports and the future of sports betting overall in California. I'm going to speak with the chairman of the California Nations Indian Gaming Association, who asked for the legal opinion. We're also going to hear from Congressman Ro Khanna, who supports legalizing sports betting. But we start with Jason Marks, who shows us what sports fans have to say about all of this.
On a Wednesday night in Sacramento,
Westbrook's gonna be lit.
the atmosphere in Doco is alive.
What's the tall rookie's name, the French guy?
For one of the last Kings preseason tune-ups.
Renaud. He played really well.
Of course, that means plenty of pre-gaming to do at Tom's Watch Bar.
This is our tradition.
Ben Thomas and his buddies try to get to as many games as possible.
We came here for the last game, got Pablo Modelo. Now we're doing it again.
Yes, they'd love to see a Kings win, but they also love to make a little extra money on the side.
I'm not the bet winner whatsoever, right? Yeah. There's a negative balance in the account.
Thomas and his buddies play daily fantasy. That's betting on real players with the potential of winning real money.
You can bet the under or the over if he gets less than that or more than that.
You just bet over under on people's points or rebounds or whatever.
Though sports gambling is illegal in California, that hasn't stopped some bettors from finding other ways.
I don't think it's the state's choice to decide whether you can gamble, though. And they restrict it a lot in California.
It's not an opinion, it's not a policy, it's not a discretionary act. It is a objective, straightforward description of what existing law is.
But there's a fear that any moment daily fantasy could no longer be around in California. In July, Attorney General Rob Bonta sacked daily fantasy, deeming the online games illegal in the state. Bonta considers it sports gambling.
It's a violation of the law, as our legal opinion has indicated, to provide a platform in the state of California to California consumers for the daily fantasy sports at issue. And the opinion is the first thing that we've been asked to provide, and we have, as you know. And the next step is our enforcement, and laws are meant to be enforced. And we expect our legal opinion to be followed and complied with by everyone governed by it.
But months later, little has changed. Though the Attorney General said he'd like to see enforcement actions taken if daily continues, nothing has happened. California Politics 360 has reached out to Bonta's office to see if he plans to take any further actions. We were asked to rely on the statement he made months ago.
I just moved back here after 4 years being in North Carolina, and they're taxing it somewhat. There's revenue to be made, always. If the Attorney General wants to ban this, tax it. Tax it and make revenue off this.
Right now, 11 states, including California, don't allow any type of sports betting. Measures to legalize sports betting in California were easily defeated during the 2022 election.
Myself, I'm only doing this probably once a month, because whenever I bet with these guys, they lose. Whenever I bet by myself, I win, right? But I don't watch NBA compared to these guys.
Some of those who play daily fantasy say it's not just about the money. It simply adds to their sports experience.
Yeah, it definitely makes you you have to watch the game, because then you watch a certain player, like if they're playing in the game, and it makes you way more invested in the game.
Whenever you're doing this, you're making a bet. It's going to promote your viewership. It's going to promote advertisement viewers, and it's generating more revenue for the game itself.
And as these friends prepare to head into Golden 1, they are well aware of the dangers gambling could present. They say, like most things, moderation is always best.
You could make money, and it makes the game more interesting, and if you're careful about it and lock in and don't have any addiction to it, and you spend $2 to $3 a game, it's just a more fun way to watch the game.
In Sacramento, Jason Marks, California Politics 360.
The future of daily fantasy sports remains in question. It's been 3 months since the legal opinion has been issued. We reached out to the governor's office, and they pointed us to the statement they shared after the opinion was first released, saying, quote, "While the governor does not agree with the outcome, he welcomes a constructive path forward in collaboration with all stakeholders." Today on California Politics 360, we welcome two powerful voices on both sides of the issue. First, I sit down with the chairman of the California Nation's Indian Gaming Association. They asked for this legal opinion. His thoughts on what's happened in the 3 months since. It's been 3 months since Attorney General Rob Bonta issued the legal opinion, but not much has changed. The chairman of the California Nation's Indian Gaming Association joins us now. Chairman James Siva, thank you so much for being with us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Major daily fantasy sports operators are still doing business in this state. Their apps are up and running despite the Attorney General's opinion. How are gaming tribes feeling about that?
We continue to be frustrated by the entire situation. We applauded, the decision coming down from AG Bonta. But as we see, there hasn't been any enforcement of that, that ruling coming down from his office. And frankly, we're frustrated by it, but we're not completely unsurprised by it. There are a lot of companies operating now, as been proven, illegally in this space. And frankly, we're concerned that the AG's office just doesn't have the resources for this type of enforcement action that is required.
That lack of resources, do you think that's the only holdup in this?
I don't believe it's the only holdup, but I do think it is a very crucial part of this process that is missing, I think.
Have the tribes considered suing those daily fantasy sports operators to potentially push the AG to take legal action here?
I think that's something under consideration. I think we would really prefer that this rule just be enforced and not have the tribes have to do the work of the state, which is not the first time that's happened, and I'm sure it will not be the last. But we would prefer very much for the state of California to handle this issue coming from their attorney general on their ruling on the grounds of they're violating state law as well as tribal exclusivity and sovereignty.
Is it just daily fantasy that the tribes have a problem with, or is season-long fantasy also an issue for the tribes? What exactly is the issue for you all?
Our issue is when they are games being played online that are house-banked games. We've talked about the difference in fantasy, the difference between peer-to-peer games, the difference between these games that are being, that play and feel like a house-banked game where you're betting against the operator and the operator is taking the risk of that wager. That's mostly the types of games that we're focused on. I do believe that overall, the more peer-to-peer fantasy sports have a place as long as they are well regulated and well run. Our major concern is if there's nothing that speaks to it in the California Constitution, that it would therefore be illegal, because the only entities that are able to offer any form of gaming in the state is tribes and the card rooms, which have existed for a long time as well.
So to clarify then, it's daily fantasy that's the problem.
I mean, daily fantasy is an issue. We also have been dealing with the sweepstakes games, which are somewhat related, but not directly, but often kind of get misconstrued together. We are glad to see the sweepstakes bill that Sinaga supported signed into law this week by Governor Newsom. These are probably the two that we have been working on longer. I would say the biggest issue that we are concerned about are actually neither of those issues, but rather the emergence of prediction markets and these sports event contracts being offered by companies such as Kalshi, Crypto.com, Robinhood. Those offerings have much more concerns for tribes at the moment, but we continue to work the daily fantasy issues, the sweepstakes issues as well.
Okay, sticking with fantasy, I mean, it has become such a big part of sports. Do you think it has absolutely no place in California, or is it something that you think perhaps the tribes should be able to control?
Yeah, I think it could have a place in California. The tribe's concern has always been the protection of our clients, of our consumers, but also the regulation of the game. Tribal gaming is perhaps the most well-regulated industry, not just in the state of California, but in the country. Regulated on 3 different levels, from the tribal level, the state level, and the federal level. And so we come into gaming wanting to do things well, wanting things to be very straightforward, transparent, and clear to our consumers, our customers. So as we look at fantasy, if there is a place to be able to offer well-regulated fantasy sports with a clear delineation of what the rules and offerings are, tribes would, obviously take a look at that.
And getting even broader then, I mean, sports betting generally, is there a future where California could have it legalized and the tribes be supportive of it?
Absolutely. At Sinaga, we have never stopped talking about sports betting, going back to 2022 when we had the 2 opposing propositions that both, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on your view, failed. We continue to work through this next offering of gaming into this market and what that looks like. There are still lots of questions to be answered. And primarily, the one that I try to bring us back around to is, do Californians want online sports betting right now? We continue to do massive amounts of polling, and our indication is that they are not ready for sports betting, that they have major concerns about, underage gaming. They have concerns about, bad actors. They have lots of concerns about regulation. Similar things that we are concerned about as well, but we do believe there is a path forward for sports betting, but that path begins and ends with tribes. Tribes are the gaming operators in the state, and we will, continue to do what we can to defend this industry that we've created, and also to continue to benefit the communities that we're a part of. A big part of tribal gaming is our charitable giving, and we continue to uplift those communities around us. And we know what good we've done here in California, but we are concerned about outside companies, out-of-state companies coming in and having access to the market with no ties to the community, with no, not providing any new jobs here in California, not providing any new revenue to California. So as we look at sports betting, when it comes, it will come through the tribes.
Chairman Siva, thank you so much for your time and joining for California Politics 360.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Next on California Politics 360, my conversation with Congressman Ro Khanna, his concerns with the Attorney General's decision. A Supreme Court decision in 2018 allowed more states to get in on sports gambling. The ruling overturned a federal law that required states to ban gambling on the outcome of sports events. Following the decision, dozens of states legalized sports gambling. As I said earlier, California is one of 11 states that still bans it. Bay Area representative in Congress, Ro Khanna, has been an outspoken voice in support of legalizing sports betting. Earlier this week, I had a chance to sit down with him. Here's our conversation. Representative Ro Khanna, thank you so much for joining California Politics 360.
Thank you for having me.
I just first want to start with your opinion on California Attorney General Rob Bonta's legal opinion that he released in July, basically declaring that online daily fantasy sports platforms are illegal in this state.
Well, it was wrong and it was out of touch. Anyone like me who grew up outside Philadelphia knows that you play fantasy sports, and this is has no purpose. It doesn't serve any beneficial use, and it's really just an insult to anyone who has played fantasy sports in any way.
What concerns broadly do you have about this being illegal here?
Well, first, how broad is it? Is it anyone literally who signs up to have a fantasy team who's engaged in trades and figuring out which quarterback and running back and wide receivers they should have on their team and which defense to pick? I mean, it's just I don't get what he's trying to do, and I don't know what are the interests that are influencing him to make that decision. I've never had someone in my town hall get up and say, I'm really concerned about all these kids who've got fantasy sports teams. Please do something about it. So it's a very odd thing for him to try to stop. And it's not helpful for a Democratic Party that's trying to win back young men. Exhibit A of how not to do that is what Bonta's doing.
We know the tribes, at the very least, tried to push the Attorney General in this direction of at least releasing the opinion. Do you think tribes here have a lot of power, maybe too much power in this space?
Well, I don't know in the specific case what influenced him. I'm against sort of money in politics, big money in politics. I've been against super PACs, lobbyists of any kind. But I think a lot of tribal interests can be protected in terms of them having gaming in their sites. I don't see how this impacts them. The fact that you have people on a fantasy football team, how does that impact a tribe that has a casino? So it's just odd to me.
Do you see a pathway in this state where California is one of 7 states where sports gambling is illegal? I mean, do you see a pathway here for it to become legal at some point?
Sure. I mean, I think that there's, it should certainly not be outlawed in terms of fantasy football. And then there are other ways that, as long as it's done responsibly and under proper regulation, there should be it can be a pathway. It's one of only 7 states. I didn't know that.
Nationally, is there anything that should be done here? Any sort of regulation or second look at just the landscape when it comes to betting, period?
Well, I think what we need is a consistent framework where it's permissible, but it's regulated. Obviously, you don't want players and others self-dealing, and where people are being protected so that they're not engaged in getting into huge debt or beyond their means, but being able to do so in a responsible way and for fun. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention that daily fantasy sports platforms are still operating in this state at the moment. There has been no legal action when it comes to the Attorney General's decision. Does that surprise you at all, or do you think that that may just be how it is?
I think they got so much pushback. It doesn't surprise me that maybe he regrets it or isn't enforcing it.
All right. Representative Ro Khanna, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Ashley.
We did reach out to several online fantasy sports platforms. Prize Picks and Underdog would not comment. A spokesperson for FanDuel and DraftKings referred us to previous statements made that the company said about meeting and working with the Attorney General to better understand his decision. Next on California Politics 360, we look back into baseball postseason history and the start of a dynasty. Next week marks 52 years since the Athletics won their first World Series in Oakland. In Game 7, the A's were able to hold off the Cincinnati Reds with a final score of 3-2. The A's would go on to win the next 2 World Series against the New York Mets and then the Los Angeles Dodgers. Thank you for joining us for this week's California Politics 360. We'll see you next Sunday.